All right, guys, time for our morning walk. Just left the gym, as almost always, and I struggled to come up with an idea for today's video, but I finally started thinking about my past self. You know, me at like between ages 18 and 24. And what would I have said to a 20-year-old Forrest? And so that's what I decided to structure this video around. And I've got 3 points that I'm gonna make in terms of, things I would say to my past self, I guess. But one thing I do want to note as a caveat is I wouldn't be where I am and you wouldn't be where you are without your past self. So don't put too much thought into, needing to go back or wanting to go back rather to your past self and say things. But this is more for those who maybe are 18 years old, men that are 20, 22, 24 that stumble across this video. These are just some things to think about and will get you way ahead of where I am, and I'm 32. So by the time you're 32, if you'll implement these things, you'll be light years ahead. Just don't forget about me. Hit me up. Say, hey, I watched that video 5 years ago and now I'm a multimillionaire. I want to give you some money. Hey, I'll take it. I love it. Anyways, so point number 1 is going to be seek knowledge. Now, seeking knowledge can happen in a number of different ways, as you can imagine. There are people that you can listen to in today's world, like on YouTube or something. You can listen to people on YouTube. You can read books. Books are really good. I read a lot of books, or I listen to a lot of books. Mentors, I really need to get a list of my mentors because I've truly had close to probably at least 10 hardcore mentors that I spent every single day with for years or months at a time. But then I've also had some soft mentors that were, a little less involved, but taught me things here and there. So I've had a lot of mentors. So seek knowledge through mentors. Listen to people who have what you want. If you know somebody who already owns that business or already has that position at the job, rather than being envious, jealous, bitter, be the complete opposite. Embrace that. You'd be surprised the amount of people that will pour out their knowledge to you just because they're proud of what they've done and they're interested in helping people. Some of them aren't, but the majority of them really actually are. And if you just say, hey, I'm really interested in becoming, this at a company, the thing that you do, or I'm interested in starting my own business, or I'm interested in being successful, what advice would you have for me? They'll pour it out to you. Now, because I went through my own journey, I didn't do this at 20. I should have been doing it. I was doing it subconsciously, and that's thanks to my grandmother, who was probably my first mentor, my very first one. And she would tell me when I was in middle school and high school, Forrest, if you want to do something, or if you have an ambition or a dream about something, find 5 people who are already successful at it and go interview them. Now, this is a profound thing because I did this several times, and I didn't realize just how, at the time, of course, you're young. I didn't realize how wise this advice was, and this is probably the number 1 thing that my grandmother gifted me with, was this practice of finding somebody successful and picking their brain. Now, she didn't say seek knowledge. She just told it like I just told you, and it was that simple. I would find somebody. Give you an example. At one point, I thought I wanted to go into sod, which is grass. It's very strange, but I like sports. And I thought, okay, I'm done playing college soccer. Here's a way I can stay involved in sports and make a good bit of money, because if you own a sod company or you do turf or grass at a professional stadium, there's a lot of money in that industry. So I contacted a really big sod manufacturer, or I don't even know if they're called manufacturers because it's real grass, farmer, I guess. And they supply a lot of the grass for like all the universities in Mississippi and big company. And I asked for the owner, and they transferred me to the owner. Next thing I know, a couple days later, I'm having lunch with the owner in Hattiesburg, Mississippi at T-Bone's Cafe. And we sat there for 2 hours. And at the end of the 2 hours, really at the end of the first hour, I realized I don't think this is what I want to do. And that was super valuable because that was something that I was considering going to Mississippi State and getting a degree in. And had I have not seeked out this one guy, made this one phone call, I may have went down that path and I might have fallen in love with it. But just by doing that, by seeking that knowledge, I realized, whoa, this doesn't sound that fun. It doesn't inspire me. Of course, I paid for his lunch, shook his hand. He's a great guy. If I saw him today, it'd be cool. But I ended up not going into sod. As most of you know, I do video production, photography. I've worked on several TV shows. I went into kind of like that creative side of things. But that was kind of always going to be the thing. But seek knowledge, especially those who are already doing what you might want to do. And again, like I did, you might find out that you don't want to do that. And it didn't cost me about $50, with lunch and a couple coffees. And it saved me thousands of dollars and probably a life full of, just kind of doing this because I've already spent the money on the degree and blah, blah, blah. So seek knowledge, that's number one. And I can make a whole video on that, but I'm not going to belabor it. Let's go into point number two. Point number two goes into kind of the precursor for the whole video, and that is to embrace failure. Okay, so failure is a hard thing to deal with as a young person because, we're not set up to accept failure or see failure in a certain perspective. Our perspective of failure is just that. It's devastating. It's failure, right? Especially if you grow up here in America. I grew up as a musician, as an artist, videographer. I played on 3 different teams in the high school. I was a soccer player. I was the kicker for the football team. I played golf. Like, failure was a big part of the equation for me because, like not playing the right notes with my band and messing up a song, failure. Not hitting a field goal from 42 yards away and losing the game, failure. Not scoring a sitter right in front of goal, failure. And school, like I was never really great academically, so failure was just like a big part of my equation, as is for most people. But failure's not the issue, it's our perspective on failure. So that's something I would encourage you to do, is to seek more knowledge on that subject and really realize that failure is part of life and failure is the only way to growth. Okay? I failed in a lot of areas by our standards, by our small mind standards. I failed in different classes. I didn't make a certain team, or I didn't, I played only junior college soccer and didn't play after that. There's like a lot of things that I could say I failed at, but the truth is, if you string together your life, let's find a success in your life, right? Say you landed like a big promotion or a new job. You're 30, you're 20, you're 5 years old, you landed a new job. You've had a lot of failures in your life, but if you string those things together, the only way you got to that job promotion was by a certain amount of failures and successes combined, right? Because if failure prohibited us from doing good things, we'd never do anything good, because nobody's perfect. Nobody doesn't fail. You're going to fail here and there, or maybe a lot. Like, I feel like I failed a lot, especially early on. But as I look back at all my failures, and there's like certain things you can think about, like me and my high school girlfriend, who is now my wife, had a child probably earlier than most people would expect, and we maybe would have expected, but it's, there's no way in hell we'd take it back. Our daughter's 10 years old now. She's amazing. We have 2 other kids. And it's just one of those things, at the moment it feels like, wow, did we do this too early, or are we ready? That kind of thing. I'm not saying it was a failure. I'm saying like our perception could have been skewed, or your perception can be skewed about something. And you hear that a lot with people who like have kids accidentally in, say, high school or, you know, in college. When they're out partying and drinking, they knock a girl up and bam, they're gonna be a dad or a mom. And you'll see them 5-10 years later, and it's the best thing that ever happened to them, because all of a sudden it's not about them anymore. It's about another person too and their survival. And if you really are trying to be the best version of yourself, you're going to use those types of things to better yourself, because you want to, you know, translate your knowledge and, you know, your successes onto the next generation. So I said embrace failure, but change your perspective on failure. And another thing that I would encourage you to do in terms of changing your perspective on failure is like things that don't work out. Not just failures, but things that don't work out. Good example, a family member of mine is looking for a piece of land. And they found the piece of land they really wanted. It was like perfect, everything he had ever dreamed of. And somebody bought it out from under him, just like that. He was really upset about it. And something that I have developed and has really, really served me well. And I've, you know, wasn't gonna preach at him about it, but I did encourage him. I was like, hey, I'm sorry that didn't work out, but this is how I try to view that stuff, and it normally works out for me. So you didn't get the land you wanted because it's getting out of the way for a better piece of land, okay? So and that's really just a perspective thing. And if you will, you know, embody that as a truth, it, so far, for me, has always worked out. Anytime I did not get something I wanted, I take a deep breath and I say, you know what? Wasn't meant to be, because there's something better coming. And so far, every single time, without a doubt, something better came. Or the thing that fell through ended up being a disaster for the other person or the other company who got the contract, you know, so on and so forth. So don't be so quick to be disappointed, because there's a good chance that God is literally saving or moving you away from a bullet. So he's helping you dodge a bullet. Just something to think about. Embrace failure, change your perspective on failure, and change your perspective on things not working out. That's going to be point number 2. Now, I'm going to try to remember point number 3 because I don't have notes or anything. I'm just walking through the park here. But I'm pretty sure point number 3 might have been encompassed in those last 2 points, but we'll go through it anyway. But it is to, what is point number 3? Let me think. I'll cut this part of the video. Point number 3. Okay. Point number 3. Okay, I got it. Point number 3 is going to be grateful for where you are right now. So we have a tendency, and it's natural, it's a good thing to want more. You know, you set a goal, you reach a goal, and then you set a new goal, right? But I think, at least from a personal standpoint, I tend to lose sight of what I have right this second, and I have to check myself. So, you know, me and my wife and my daughter, the first place we really ever lived as a small family was in a basement where the water was coming through when it rained. We had to stack towels in front of it. And that was just, you know, a very, you know, it was a hard time. Okay, let's just put it that way. And then, you know, fast forward, we buy our first house, and there's, you know, hey, it's got a roof on it. It's got a kitchen. It's got a bathroom. We're good to go. But, you know, there's a lot of times where we would complain about certain things the house doesn't have. And my new house, I find myself complaining about things it doesn't have, and talking about, well, this isn't our dream house. We're going to go to the next house. That's all fine and dandy. Having goals is great, but take some time to see how far you have come, because more often than not, almost for everybody, you've come a long way. And the fastest way to, in my opinion, manifest what you want is to be grateful for what you have. It's kind of like what David Bear says, you know, to have the bank account you want, you have to be grateful for the bank account you have. To have the house you want, you have to be grateful for the house you have. And so, you know, even though you might not have that job you want yet, even though you might not have the money in your bank account that you want yet, you might not have that significant person that you want and that family that you're striving to create, or that dream that you want to accomplish, take a second. And an easy one for me and for most people probably watching this video is the fact that I live in the United States. We take that, that's probably the most taken for granted thing in the history of man, is if you live in the United States, I have the ability to hold this camera, walk around my local park, which is super safe and beautiful, even at night, and make this content and just do whatever I mean, just truly do whatever you want to do. Like, no one can stop you. Take somebody like Donald Trump, who is the president of the United States. Love him or hate him, there was so many people who tried to stop him, but because our country is built on so many free principles of freedom of speech and religion and, you know, land ownership, there's so much. Just that as a baseline, if you live in America, just take a moment to take that into consideration and be grateful for that. And a lot of great things will start happening to you. You know, people ask me all the time when I'm in town or at an event or whatever it may be, hey man, how's it going? And I almost always say, better than I deserve. Because there are a lot of people who didn't win the geographical lottery and live in a place that is not free. And we really take this freedom for granted. So be grateful. If you, like, let's just say you're in college right now, or you're, you know, in your 20s and you're working a job that you would deem as kind of a dead-end thing. It's not what you want to do with your life. It doesn't pay a lot. You're not doing well financially. You can't seem to get ahead. Realize that you're standing on the pedestal of the world that allows you to springboard to anywhere you want to go. Even though you're not doing what you want to now, you have the ability to change that in an instant, partially because of where you live. So that's my third and final point. I'm back to the truck now. So we're gonna check out of this video, but seek knowledge through mentors, books, and the internet. I mean, the fact that you have the internet is a freaking miracle, dude. Okay? Embrace failure. And then finally, be grateful for where you're at